All right, welcome to the Ravit Show. We are here at Snowflake Summit. It's day 2, and look who I have with me, Shirshanka from Acryl Data. Shirshanka, welcome to the Ravit Show. Such a pleasure to finally meet you in person. And I'm kind of curious to learn a lot about DataHub, Acryl, obviously the control plane for data. But just for our audience, would you like to quickly introduce yourself? Tell us a little more about Acryl.
Sure. Really nice to meet you in person, Ravit. As usual, when we finally meet people in person, we figure out that they're taller than me. So that happened again, but not much taller.
Not much, yes.
Not much taller. We finally found time to record this.
Yes.
Super busy in the back, but thanks to the Boba station and also thanks to the new UI that Dash
Love
launched.
the vibe here.
So it's been a great event. My background, Shirshanka, CTO and co-founder at Acryl. And prior to this, I was at LinkedIn for pretty much a decade and more. Spent pretty much all my time with my stakeholders being AI and ML practitioners on the one side, and data scientists and data analysts on the other.
Yes.
And my job really was to keep them happy. And that required making data easy to discover and making them very productive with data. And at the same time, making data hard to use. So I spent a bunch of time making data democratized at LinkedIn, and also spent a bunch of time making data hard to use or locked down and compliant. And that led me to create the DataHub project. So DataHub project was something I created at LinkedIn, came out of LinkedIn, was open sourced in 2020, and in the last 3 years has quickly risen to become the #1 open source metadata platform. Yeah, we see so many people come by and say, I know DataHub, I use it already.
Yes.
And so we have a large community of practitioners that are using it, and Acryl, of course, is the company that's the lead maintainer of the project and driving it forward, and we have a cloud project called Acryl DataHub that basically takes it to the next level. And we've got customers all around the world, and more importantly, a community that's continuously pushing the project forward.
Nice, I love it, and we've seen it all, and great work that you've done in this space. So thanks for that, Shirshanka. Quickly wanted to also learn a little about the control plane of data. What does it mean? Tell us more about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people go from metadata to catalog.
Right.
We talk about it as metadata to control plane, primarily because, and this was a thesis I shared last year at Data Council's keynote.
Yes.
I think you were there, maybe not. But yeah, we talked about what a control plane is and why you need it. Our thesis is that the data and AI world will continue to stay fragmented. And of course, I'm saying this on the floor of Snowflake Summit, where Snowflake just unveiled the platform to rule them all. But next week, Databricks will be here, and they will unveil something else. So single platform to rule them all. And then we're not even talking AWS and Google and Microsoft and the streaming ecosystem with Confluent. And I think what we will see is, AI workflows and all of these different innovations that happen will continue to create like a best-in-class experience.
Right.
Customers will basically say, well, I want the best-in-class stack, and they'll assemble it together. And once they do that, they'll realize, oops, I lost something. And the first thing they'll miss is control. So you've got a fragmented data stack, you assemble the best-in-class tools. Snowflake is probably in there, but maybe other things are there as well. Maybe Tableau, maybe Looker, maybe PyTorch, maybe OpenAI, right? And then you say, well, I still want my control back. The same control I had when I was running one single Oracle instance back in 1990.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when they'll need us. So basically we provide that control plane, which gives you two things really. The first thing is a visibility layer, and that's basically foundational stakes to see where all the data is, how it's being transformed, what's happening, which models are being trained on what data. And then secondly, a specification layer. So visibility is good, it lets you see what's going on, but it doesn't let you control the chaos, right?
Yeah.
So the specification layer is something that actually tells you that you can tell the control plane, hey, I want this to happen. For example, I want my externally trained LLM model to never have access to PII.
Yes.
Or I want this logical concept of a customer data product to get created, and I want it to comprise of this Tableau asset and this Snowflake table and this AI model. And depending on who's using it, there might be a data contract associated with it or a data product specification associated with it. These are all logical concepts.
Exactly.
And our goal is to be that storage repository, specification repository for all of these logical concepts, and then to translate it into the physical stuff. So if Snowflake offers tag-based masking and tag-based propagation, we'll push all of that down. And if Databricks offers that, we'll push all of that down.
Right.
And so we just give you that peace of mind that you can adopt the best and the quickest and the fastest innovating technologies while still retaining control and visibility into your entire data stack. That's kind of our promise.
Love it. I think well explained, but now it all makes sense why I see the control plane for data.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Also, quickly wanting to learn a little about, as companies are thinking about AI use cases more and more, how does control plane help them?
Yeah, the AI scenarios, of course, the data scenarios are common across data and AI, honestly. You'll see a lot of it in the keynotes across all of the different big platforms, really. Everyone will say the same thing. AI needs and data needs are very similar.
Right.
They all have, start with search and discovery, governance, and quality. So those are like, I would say, evergreen areas that all these systems need those capabilities. But AI brings more demands. So AI use cases like fine-tuning, prompt engineering, those create a lot of new requirements that have previously not really been seen in the more classic warehouse world.
Right.
And I think that'll drive new demands on infrastructure, and that's what we are really driving in our control plane implementation, being able to accomplish those kind of use cases. So I can not only have governance, but also reproducibility and explainability.
Very
and
important.
It's
Yeah.
funny for me because, I talked about my decade at LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and towards the end of those few years, I had transitioned from making data discoverable to making data governance and compliant, and I was starting to work on MLOps. So basically, LinkedIn was going through this journey of we want our AI developers to be very productive, and we also want to be compliant with CCP and all of these other regulations. So how quickly can we do it?
True.
And what we ended up realizing was that the same infrastructure should be reused for that same purpose. But then it's not exactly the same. You have deeper demands, and so you have to retool the platform to be able to support those use cases. So we
Yeah.
think the control plane will go through a little bit of an evolution to address AI use cases. But we feel like it has to be done in a unified way,
Right.
because if you fragment those solutions and you solve discovery, governance, observability, and AI in a separate set of tools, you end up getting the same kind of problems all over again. Who owns this thing? Where was it produced from?
Exactly.
Is it actually safe to use this or not? Was it trained on the right data? I don't know. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the problem we're making sure that people don't have to solve.
It is very important for someone to come up and talk about these types of problems, and you guys are doing it so fantastic. Quickly, also wanting to learn a little about so there are a lot of meta solutions, right? I talk to a lot of enterprise leaders too, and they feel that it's a little confusing to us. How does what does the future hold for AI use cases, and how do you solve that problem for the customers? I'm kind of just curious to learn a little.
Yeah, definitely. Marketing departments are very aggressive, and they also like to just catch on to whatever buzzwords there are.
True.
So if you walk around this booth, the booths here, everyone is data and AI. Everyone is AI ready in some form or another. And we feel like, I'm of course a builder at heart.
Yeah.
So I like to look under the covers and say, well, sure, you're marketing your system as AI ready or intelligence ready or whatever you want to call it. But from the inside out, are you architected for it? That's how I like to think, because I'm an architect.
CTO thought of process,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So I
and
hear
I've
you.
seen the failures of how technology can't keep up with marketing, because even internally when I was a data infrastructure lead, I would market my solution to my stakeholders and say, use this, it's going to work. It is ready
best.
for you.
Yeah.
But then I would have to back myself that I know the architecture for it.
True.
And like I said, AI has a bunch of demands that are different from the previous demands that data workloads created. Fine-tuning, prompt engineering, they require things like time travel. They require things like versioning, and they require a kind of scale that hasn't been seen before. And so you really cannot be betting on solutions. You have to look carefully at the solution and make sure it's not built on quote-unquote ancient technology. And you have to make sure that the system it's built on is actually rapidly evolving and is able to keep up with the pace of change that is happening in our industry.
True. Okay. On that front, I can't miss this question for sure, because you're a builder at heart. So my question is, why do you think open source is important in this game? And tell us a little about the projects as well. I know I've chatted with you over the months, I think over a year now, and I've learned so much. So I want to make sure my community also learn all of those things. So a
Sure.
little about the open source.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, anytime, and this has been played out in industry multiple times over, anytime there is a messy problem to be solved, especially a problem that has to deal with fragmentation and complexity, the only way to really build it is in the open. Because if you're trying to build an open standard for X, whatever that X is,
Right.
you have to build it in the open for two reasons. One, if you're a small team, there is no way for you to really fully do justice to the breadth of complexity that exists. And second, the community ends up often being the leaders in defining what the product needs to do. So I can, of course, rely on a lot of my intuition around, hey, this worked at LinkedIn, so it probably works everywhere else. But actually, that's not true.
It's not true.
It's actually a classic failure mode to take a pattern that worked in some big company and try to apply it across the whole world.
Everyone has a different standard altogether.
So the best way we do it is to learn from the community. The community actually tells us what is needed, and in some cases, they're actually able to push the project forward themselves. For example, PayPal is a big customer, but also a contributor to the project. They push the project forward towards adding access management capabilities. Visa is an open source adopter, and they're pushing the platform forward towards adding concepts like business attributes.
Yep.
Netflix, another big open source adopter, they're pushing the platform forward towards adding runtime types and runtime extensions to the platform. Without those big teams contributing and moving the platform forward in such fundamental ways, we would have no hope of building this standard for the internet, right? So I think open source is super important in certain areas. If you're building a CSV to Salesforce exporter or importer, sure, I don't think you need to be open source. But if you're building something that sits so central in the middle of the data stack, it has to be open source, both in terms of protocols as well as in terms of how it's built, because that way the community can actually move it forward.
Yep.
A lot of our customers contribute into the projects, a lot of contributors to the project become customers, and then there are a lot of contributors that are just contributors.
Yeah.
At this point we have 500 contributors to the DataHub project, and they're not on Acryl's payroll. They are contributing through all of these other companies that they're part of. And that means the project moved forward at a much faster rate than it would if it was just bankrolled by a single company.
Love
and
it.
so that really is the strength of open source, in my opinion, and that will keep the project vibrant for years to come. I mean, we have 1,000 plus production installs from what we can tell of the open source project, and we also have a lot of customers using us, and we have continuous new capabilities coming out. So it's an exciting time to build.
Love it. All the great insights, and that shows how builder you are at heart.
Yeah.
So thanks for that, Shirshanka. One last question for our audience. If they want to reach out to you, what's the best place? Is it LinkedIn, maybe email, anything else?
So LinkedIn is, of course, the easiest way to find me. I'm on LinkedIn, and because of being an ex-LinkedIn employee, I also have a premium account, so it makes
Yay.
it super easy.
Nice.
But also find us on Slack. The DataHub project is slack.datahubproject.io.
Yes. I'll share the links with
So
them.
just
Yes.
get on the project, try it out, talk to us. We're here to help in any way possible.
Thank you very much for your time today. It was such a pleasure chatting with you on the Ravit Show, and we can't wait to see what's next for Acryl.
Thanks a lot, Ravit.
Thank you. Thank you.